So next we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial journey, and I really want to thank everyone for coming. It tells me that you want to hear about these innovative companies and where they're at in their journey and what they're doing. So a little bit about me. I spent 35 years in manufacturing in various roles, but always on the technical side. I now work in venture capital, and I have a couple of board positions with VoxelJet, which is a 3D printing company, and Aperio AI, and I'm also an advisor. So I'm working with manufacturing at MIT, for example, on building a consortium. So we can go ahead and get started because we have an excellent group today. So I want everyone to introduce yourself and your company briefly. So tell a little bit about your background and what your company does, and you'll see how different the companies are and where they're at in their journey. Jonas?
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming here to listen to our story. So I'm Jonas, I'm Swedish. I live here in Boston actually for the last 25 years. And I run a software startup that solves the garbage in, garbage out problem for manufacturing data. So in a nutshell, what we do is we monitor manufacturing data like, a temperature in an oven or a parts counter on an assembly line or whatever it may be. And then we apply algorithms to that to try to figure out if this data is, reliable and accurate. And the purpose of doing that is to make sure that, these days when data is everything and data analytics is sort of like the driver of progress, the first thing you need is to make sure you have reliable data, and that's the problem that we solve.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Kees?
Hi. Nice to meet you all. My name is Gijs, co-founder and CEO of Twikit. We're based out of Belgium, so it's quite a distance to get to Boston, but it's a great place to be here amongst you all guys. Twikit solves a problem that has been addressed by many companies, I guess, and also through the years in many ways. And we are all about automating in a cloud-based way the workflows for mass customization. So we basically connect the customer in a digital front end directly to digital manufacturing. Why is this relevant? I think we all know that current supply chains are complicated, they are globalized, and there needs to be an answer to that, another way of manufacturing products. And this is basically what we address, a new way of making products. So basically you sell it first and then you create or you make it. So that's what we are all about, and I think today we can zoom in on that and on other topics a little more.
Okay, great. Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Wu. Mine will be a little bit longer because I got two companies to talk about. I am the founder of Owyler Collaborative. We're an architectural design firm based in Los Angeles. For the last 20 years, we created work on the intersection of art and architecture. And so you can imagine that the type of work, very artistic, experimental work, is quite difficult to produce, realize. And so I spent most of my career figuring out how does an architect, who normally just draws, bridge the gap to fabrication or construction, like contractors who builds it. And so a lot of the work I've done in my career is actually we did a lot of design build. And so through the merging of traditional and digital fabrication, we're able to kind of create really, let's say, wondrous pieces, installations, and larger projects. And so with that, about 2013, kind of the renaissance of 3D printing, I started doing a lot of public speaking, and so I wanted to create some jewelry for myself to wear. And at that time, I thought, why aren't there more sort of interesting, innovative jewelry out there? And so I realized, and we can go into this further, I thought maybe I could just make it myself. So I actually, this is one of the pieces I 3D printed. Actually, these are the kind of the original pieces I designed. And so then I, printed, and I thought, oh, and people kept saying to me, like, what is that? I've never seen anything quite like it. And so at that time, I thought, maybe I have something here. So then I decided, how can I, produce jewelry in a totally different way? And I started Lace, which is my jewelry brand.
It's super interesting. So you can see we have a diverse panel, diverse backgrounds, completely different topics that they're working in, and in different places of their journey. So I would like to ask a few questions, and then I want to take questions from the audience. So I want to start off with your inspiration. So what problem are you trying to solve, and how did you identify the problem? And we'll just have a discussion, but maybe Jonas, we start with you.
Yep. So, the problem of data quality or data reliability in manufacturing is obviously not a new one. I mean, people have been struggling with that since people started using data, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger one. Now, the way we ended up, working on that is actually. In a roundabout way, we started actually working on a different problem. We started working on a cybersecurity problem. We thought that there would be an interesting use case for monitoring critical infrastructure like power plants and water treatment plants and that type of thing, and to monitor these plants and protect them against cyber attacks. And the way we decided to do that was to monitor actually the sensor data. So sort of think like, if you want to poison the water, you got to make sure the sensor that measures the parameters of the water, you would have kind of like intervened with that. So we started building software for monitoring essentially sensor data and time series data for that purpose. And as we were doing that, and we were out talking to customers and potential customers, we realized there was a much bigger problem out there that was more sort of like broadly speaking, data needs to be reliable, full stop, not just protect against cyber attacks. And then we looked around and we realized nobody else had tried to solve that. It was a lot of software companies working on other sort of like tangential issues like data analytics and so forth, predictive maintenance, predictive analytics, but nobody was kind of like attacking this issue. So that's how we got started. We learned about a bigger issue in the industry as we're out selling to customers, and we sort of quickly expanded our focus to that, and we've been building on that since then. So that's how we kind of got into it and grew it.
Yeah. So when we started with the concept of Twikit around about 10 years ago, when we started exploring our ideas. We were with 3 co-founders. I was mainly active in digital marketing, consumer brands. The other founder, Martin, came from the 3D print space. And George, the third one, he is a digital entrepreneur with software platform development and stuff like that. And when we looked at the market of, for example, digital manufacturing, we identified that there were many opportunities in industry, but not so many in the consumer space. So the thesis was, what if we can unlock the power of digital manufacturing for the consumer space? That would be a huge market. And then after some exploration, we design thinking, we came to sort of conclusion that there are 2 major problems. First, the customer is not really able, or in many cases, not really able to have a big influence on the end result of the product he or she wants to buy. This can be aesthetical, this can be functional. Aesthetical can be a car you want to customize to your own taste, beyond the color and the rims. For example, functional, it can be a helmet that truly fits if you wear it like 3 hours a day. So that interaction between the consumer and the brand or the manufacturing, we wanted to solve that. And we also identified that on the manufacturing side, most of this manufacturing happens in mass production. So everything is blueprinted for that. So those 2 things we wanted to address. And this is why we developed, of course, the platform that connects the consumer in an interactive 3D way to a digital manufacturing within the middle, of course, generating production files and things like that.
So Jenny, I know you already mentioned your inspiration, but how did you decide that you're going to make this available for everyone?
Yeah, I always call myself kind of a accidental entrepreneur because at first I was just making for myself to wear because I didn't realize I was identifying the problem, which was there's just not a lot of innovative, interesting jewelry out there. And when you look at the production method of jewelry, like when you're wearing a chain, you want every chain to be exactly the same so that you can reproduce it. And so like, for example, like this necklace itself, if you do it through 3D printing, it doesn't matter to the 3D printer whether every single one is slightly different size because it's printed from the bottom to the top and you're not creating every little module that you're connecting together. So, so I thought, oh, this is really interesting. We're really shifting the way that we're, producing jewelry and how can we create a brand that just really maximize what a 3D printing technology could do. So then that was really in like about 2014, and you can imagine the last 10 years of kind of the development of technology, and we started working with a lot of different 3D printing companies. Sometimes they'll send me like a pile of gooey stuff, and I'm like, oh, too gooey. And then there's things like, I remember this necklace when we just wanted to figure out the latch, and there was like times when it was just, like we had to print like at least 50 latches because it was either too tight, no one could take it off without breaking it, or it was like too loose and someone hugs you and it falls off. So, with all the kind of implementation of a new technology, there was all these kind of also challenges that you had to, overcome because at the end, I just felt like there was so much interesting experimentation. I mean, even to today, like every year I have to kind of revisit all the technology. Like, are we using the right thing for my brand? And I think I like to think that gives all the pieces a really great story. So.
It's super interesting. So I have to tell on myself for a minute. In January, I took the MIT Entrepreneurial Development Program through MIT here and under Bill Aulet. And it was a super interesting and fascinating course. So for any aspiring entrepreneurs, I should definitely recommend taking it. But my final takeaway when I left was that I do not want to run a startup. Okay, so I'm perfectly happy with working with startups and advising them and helping give that manufacturer's view. But I don't want the stress of raising money and running a startup and running the crew and all that. I want to have more fun. And so, Jenny, I'd actually like to start with you. How did you get the courage to actually do this? I know you're bootstrapping it.
Yes.
So, and I'm really curious as to how did you bridge the, oh my God, to, hey, isn't this cool, and actually take that step?
Yeah. What I didn't realize when I decided to use 3D printing as the production method, that in fact I was completely changing the business model for what a jewelry company would do, because normally you don't jump into a jewelry business. It's super expensive. The raw material, labor costs, super high. So I was able to figure out, like through kind of print to order and then sort of managing our data and figuring out trends, that I only produce what I need and never produce a lot, and to keep my costs down. And I would, we bootstrapped. And I think to me that was a blessing for me because I felt like at the beginning there was a lot of stuff to work out, and I wanted to have control over that. And then, and pieces can continue to evolve. I just tweak little things no one would never ever notice, but I do, but it makes it better and better. So I think because I was able to keep the costs fairly manageable, that I felt the courage to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Guys?
Yeah, so I think in my case, when it comes to entrepreneurship, and we've been talking with a couple of folks here already, it takes courage, yes. I was lucky that I was still pretty young. I was like 27 when I started my entrepreneurial career. It's my first business. But actually before that, when I was in my teenage years, like 16, 17, we were already building websites and stuff like that. So I come from an entrepreneurial family. So to me, entrepreneurship was like DNA. It was not a real challenge to me to start. But of course, when you're younger and you don't have that much of family life or a mortgage or whatever, it's probably easier to take the step, right? And I don't think there is the right moment to start. I think it's just something you really want to do. And there's also not a template to start becoming an entrepreneur. But of course, you can be inspired, and you have to have a drive and a passion and a willingness to succeed. But anyways, for us, the step was also bootstrapping in the beginning. I mean, the first 4 years, we pulled in some money, friends, family, fools. You know how it goes. And you have to be a little foolish also to start like that. But then after exploring, and it was more like MVPing, we really knew, okay, this is something we want to pursue, and this is the direction we want to go to. And then we were able to raise the first round of capital, and building the software core as we know it today. So it's really step by step, but it feels good. I mean, it's like, yes, if I look back, this was the right way, at least for us. And I think that's always the most important thing, that it should feel right for yourself, for the folks you work with.
I think that's an important takeaway. Jonas?
Over to me.
Yes.
Well, I'll give you a slightly different perspective, I guess, on this pricker issue. So I'm not that young. I mean, I'm not that old either, I hope. But I got family, 2 kids, and so for me, it's more like, I don't think I have the courage to work for a big company. Like for me, it's just like, I love to build things. I love to create, try new things, learn new things, and this is what you get. Like, I don't look at myself in the mirror and like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I just look at myself as some kind of like, person that loves to work on projects, to build them and to grow them, right? And that's kind of what drives me. And it's like at the end of the day, I think it's about what gets you out of bed in the morning and what you love to do. Yeah. And that's what and this is what I love to do. I don't think there's a risk. Like, I don't think there's inherent risk in a startup that's any different than some kind of inherent risk in working for a company, right? Because you work for IBM, you get laid off one day.
Yeah.
You work for a startup, like, what are you actually risking? I guess it's time, because if you're smart enough to really go and set up a company and run a company, you can get another job in a second anyways. So yeah, it's just a matter of like, are you willing to put some time into something, believe in yourself and build something? And if that floats your boat, then that's what you do, right?
I like how the common theme is about passion and creativity, and really just pursuing what you love. I want to switch a little bit to the business aspect, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Yeah. So I work actually in venture capital now. This is my way to hang out with startups without the risk. And so at Memento, we look at early growth startups, and they already have a product, a working product. They have customers who will tell success stories, and they've got some recurring revenue. We look for around $1 million ARR, but there's always variances to that. And I'm curious, and Guys, I want to start with you, what is the business model to scale, and at what point do you make that transformation?
Yeah. So if you start off with exploring, let's say, I'll call it exploring, you're trying to find value, I think, or you're trying to create value. And you might know that the idea you have and the concept you have might bring value to a customer, but the question is, how are you going to make money, and how are you going to grow your business and be profitable? So in my opinion, it's important to have a sort of check, like if it feels, or you can prove that you have repetitive sales with a not too complicated installation of each new customer, then you might be at a point that you can think about scaling. But of course, you need to be sure that the product market fit is there. And what I've seen, and I've experienced it myself, is especially in B2B, more enterprise customer engagements. In the beginning, you only have a handful of customers, and it can be a very big trap to think, oh, this is what the market wants, but it's only 5 data points. So you need to make sure that you have an objective way of looking at your traction, at your product. You need to productize. Oftentimes you need to say more no than yes. It's very important. And then you start thinking about growing your business, okay? And when it comes to business model, I mean, we are in the software as a service, so it's subscription-based, it's volume-based, a couple of parameters that drive growth in our case. But that business model is, I think, crucial in order to plan your growth. Because if you are a software company, you can have very high margin, but maybe your cost of acquisition is extremely high if you are an enterprise. So there are many factors, and I really do think that by learning from others at that stage of your development is crucial. Because again, you might have a good idea, but you've never, in most cases it's your first venture, you have never done the growth.
Right.
It's your first time. So if you start talking with people and be inspired, I think that's something every entrepreneur should do. And avoid the idea, I know everything, because I've read the news and I've been reading blogs, and yes, but if you talk to fellow entrepreneurs or maybe inspiring entrepreneurs, you typically learn more about, okay, be real and don't fantasize too much on what's possible. It's important, think big, but it's more like, how can we mechanically fix this into a business model? And I think that's super important, that it rolls. Very important. Yeah.
Jonas?
Well, for better or for worse, you'll hear a similar answer from me. So maybe that's good. I don't know what you're gonna say. So yeah, I mean, this is the biggest mistake, right, that people make, and it's so easy to fall into this trap. It's like it's literally about product market fit and repeatable sales. But the thing with that is, right, like that somebody thinks they have product market fit when they have 5 customers saying nice things. But they don't. It's not there yet. And that it's like over and over again. I mean, even I fall into this trap, like conceptually thinking, oh wow, got a customer. Oh, I got another. Oh, ready to go. No. Right? Because it's like early stage, it's like these are early adopters, the product may not work yet, but you think it does, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then you start pouring money into sales, into marketing and all that, right?
Yep.
And then your sales message is not ready, your positioning is not ready, but you think it is because you wrote a sentence about it. So, you see everybody sitting there going, oh, I got to have a VP of marketing, a VP of sales, VP of product, VP of, holy crap. And then, because ultimately at the end of the day, right, what kills the startup, it's you run out of cash. I mean, that's it. And
Number one,
right? And you run out of cash because you mistimed it, It's not because you're an idiot, it's you mistimed the whole thing. And you started spending on the wrong things. The other thing is too, it's like your mind space. How much can you focus on? Like you cannot build sales and marketing and everything at the same time. So yeah, get the product right. Don't think that after 1, 2, 3, 4 customers that it's right, because it may not be. Do not spend on, I mean, you gotta have somebody doing sales, of course, and then you get your sales kind of, repeatable sales thing working, and you figure that out, right? And then okay, now it's time to scale. So like that's the switch from sort of like product market fit and early adoption to scale. And so yeah, for almost everybody, it's like that. They think they're there, and it comes too early.
Yes.
I think I'm at that point is like, am I there or not yet there? And I think it's always very scary. I think that's the bigger leap, because when you're like, am I ready to plunge a huge amount of marketing, into the products, and you always feel like, it's a big leap. And so I guess, because we bootstrapped and we were profitable from day one, like I was very comfortable, like figuring out how to manage everything ourselves and figuring out how to just, with a lean team, figure out how to outsource, figure out how to do, everything on our own. And as you grow, you realize, as you scale, I mean, not only is just like the budgets gets bigger, I mean, fundamentally, I've been talking about how we're transforming the jewelry industry through new ways of production, although I'm not sure yet, at least in terms of cost, that 3D printing at cost can scale at the point where it's as cheap as producing, elsewhere. And so this is where then you kind of have to dig deep and look at the ethics of like, am I ready to produce jewelry, in China and somewhere else, or should I maintain true to the 3D printing, or is there a hybrid kind of production method that we can think of? And so this is where we're at. So it's great to hear from all of you. And I'm still thinking about it.
That's great, thank you. So we have time to take questions from the audience. So we just need, yes, please.
Hi. I was wondering how you build your team. So like, how do you recruit people to like work with you, and how do you find like foundational members of?
So whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah. So we start with 3 co-founders, and then I think after a couple of months we had our first team member, hired team member. I think hiring people in the first phase is more about attracting the right mindset and the people who want to join you in this endeavor. I mean, we were not really looking for folks with the highest degrees or with specializations. It was more like all-rounders, like folks that just work and do stuff. And I think that worked out pretty well until you find your path for growth, and then you start thinking about functions and structures. And I think until a team member a size of 12, it was pretty easy to manage everything. Because you step into the room, there are like 1 or 2 tables, and you know exactly what everybody's doing. Above that, you need to have a structure of more like reporting and more outlined roles. But again, going back to how to hire, I think the DNA of somebody and the passion and why they want to work in a company that is still small and has big dreams versus going to IBM, for example. I think this is the most important thing. And it's also important, even if you're with 50 people or 200 or 2,000 people, if that DNA is still there, okay, supported with a structure, I think you can still change industries, right? But you need to have a structure when you grow, but the DNA and the mindset of the people needs to be there still.
Yeah.
And that's something we as founders need to cultivate, and it's like nurturing your people in values and in thinking and those things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, above all, just get the right people. That's the number 1 thing, number 2 thing, and the number 3 thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then, hire with your gut, but also fire with your gut. Like somebody doesn't fit, the worst thing to do is to keep people around to kind of pollute the culture or get people things sidetracked and stuff. So, but I mean, early on, is just find the people that are going to be sort of like the musketeers kind of thing. Yeah. And then beyond that, just I think really focus on getting the right people in and getting the wrong people out as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in our office, we do hire a lot of architects. We like very creative people, and so that ends up, and also they seem to have a lot of skill sets that we need. So, but I do think I totally agree. The attitude and, all of those things are really important. So.
Yeah. Building the culture is, I think, probably the most important thing after you find your purpose as a company and your product fit and things like that. And then also creating involvement, because if your company grows, it's impossible to have a personal connection like the Musketeers. Yeah, okay, everybody knows each other. If your company grows, it's impossible. And if you can create a culture, then no matter who's talking to who's working with who, it's like a sort of thing that spreads itself. And this is, by the way, I think the best way to grow is that people in the teams, indicate themselves like, hey, we need an extra team member, or we might have too many people here. I mean, recently somebody told me like, hey, I think we need less people in this domain and we need to transfer them to another domain. As a CEO, it's impossible to know that at some stage, but you really want to have those people addressing that themselves and reorganizing the structure based on, yeah, like it's okay to change. It's not a problem. You don't have to sit there and waste your time. You just do something else. And I think that's the agile aspect of a, let's say, startup, scale-up versus the rigid structure of a corporate.
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
My question is for Jenny. I was looking at your website, which is beautiful, by the way, and Facebook and Instagram. Like you were saying about the clasps, I was wondering, do you guys 3D print the metal also? And say if you do have to go through trial and error, are you able to melt the ones that kind of mess up down into?
Yes. Yes to all of it. Yeah, no, we 3D print. And one of the best things about, our brand is that, I come to these, different, it's like a candy store for me. Like I work with, carbon fiber, I work with, different polymers and different technology in steel and TPU, et cetera. And so, and I can also see from 2013 to now, like the advancement, like, oh, this just got better, my resolution got better. It's been super fun to be able to directly print in all these materials. Yeah.
That's great. Please.
What have your tough times been? How did you get the company through?
What was the question?
Tough times.
What have your tough times been, and how'd you get the company through it?
Oh.
You start.
Well, I mean, I don't look at it that way, I suppose. I mean, everything is up and down and left and right. I mean, I think it's just a kind of like a matter of having an expectation that it's not going to go like that, which is not. It's going to go like that and that and that. But if sort of like your trajectory at the end of the day is tracking, to where then that you're in the right direction. But I mean, look, there's plenty of tough times, right? I mean, I was raising money this year. It's the toughest year to raise money, I think, in the last 2 decades, maybe. It's hard, right? But I don't know. I look at those things as just challenges as part of the job. Like you get the product wrong, and you got to make some hard decisions to change the team. But so and I've had that, right? I've had runway that's shorter than I think I'm going to close funding. So that you could go at tough times. But I think it's kind of like just you put your project management hat on and just execute and take the emotions out of it, and because that's the startup. I mean, it's like you're going to deal with challenges every day.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. I think personally I agree. It's like going like that all the time. As long as you have your North Star, and you can have a sidetrack, but you always go back to the right path. Tough times for me as an entrepreneur are mostly personal things that happen. Somebody leaving the company, some struggles in the team. That to me is more like tough than, for example, having a financial challenge, because that's just okay. Financial challenge, we need to solve that. It's stress, yes. Is it tough? It's part of the job. And if you look at things in a rational way, and there is always a solution, it's hard, but it's not that tough. Tough to me is really when you feel like somebody wants to stay with the company, but it's impossible because there's this or that. To me, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, the personal issues between people. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, you want to have this culture, and even you have a positive and a growth culture. There is always something happening that you feel like, wow. No.
I agree. Like that's it's worse. You have two people that don't work out together. That affects you more.
Yeah.
That feels tougher
Yeah.
than a customer canceled or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's just an event.
Because that's just an event, and you can fix it.
you
Yeah.
can fix that.
Yeah.
I mean, mine's D2C, so I get, when you work with a material that has been invented like 6 months ago, and you don't know how well it will age, or what happens when you post-process a material, and then what happens in a year, and then all of a sudden, like a story like these necklaces. When I first did it, I wanted it to be black. For one, just keeps it not so dirty. And then 6 months later, all like the powder, there's some residual powder on the necklaces, and all the dye turned brown. And every necklace turned brown. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
recall.
You know? And so then we like literally had to go through like, went to every type of like, realize that you can't just simply like, it's not just a simple fabric dye that could just dye your necklaces, but you had to, and so there's a lot of, those are the stresses, like, what's wrong with this? Like, how do you fix it? But you know, now we have a great dye and it's not gonna turn brown. But it took a while to figure out, you know, and it's just a lot of problem solving.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're on time downstairs, but maybe one more question and then we'll wrap up.
There was
Anyone back
a
there?
question over there. It was, no.
Yeah.
I was curious about what skills do you think have been most important for you to develop and how you develop them?
What skills are the most important to develop?
What skills do you think have helped you the most that you've developed as like as a founder and how you develop them? Like when you learn about that stuff.
Well, to me, the most important skill is the resourcefulness, like trying to figure new things out, right? Like there's a lot of people that fit in a box and they can only do the job if it's kind of like scripted and planned and has a manual. For me, it's just it's not the degree, it's not the, you know, any particular subject matter domain. Yeah. It's more like sort of like a broad-based ability to sort of like pick up a problem, research it, figure out how to solve it, you know, learn how to solve a new problem. Because every day there's something new that you got to do that you've never done before.
Yeah.
That I think is by far the most important skill.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's about problem solving, and if you go one level higher, after a while, it's about making the right analysis. I think many mistakes are made by, you know, going too fast into problem solving mode and pay not enough attention to analyzing a problem. And again, when you deal with people, your team grows, you have different opinions, and there's something I learned, like, okay, listen to others. You never know, there's a new insight coming. So problem solving, I agree. But I also think persistence, you know, never giving up. I mean, that's I think what it is. And it's closely connected to problem solving.
Yeah.
Because if you see a problem and you have the creativity and the open mindset to see solutions, I think that's the, you know, the positive thing that keeps you going, because you see always a new opportunity. So yeah, I strongly believe in problem solving. Yeah, that's something you have to do naturally almost.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with those, and I might add something about honesty. I think, to me, you know, at the end of the day, with my whole necklace debacle, the dye, you know, when you're truthfully explaining, you know, the situation to your customer, I think they really understand. I mean, they're kind of buying into the concept of you're trying to experiment and do something new. And so I think a lot of times being honest with your team, being honest with your customers, those are all really important. So
I'd like to add one point that Bill Olylet kept saying all week in that class, and that was to be anti-fragile, because you're going to hear no an awful lot more than you hear a yes. And to not give up, and especially in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of no. And when you're raising money, there's a lot of no. And you just have to set your personal feelings aside and just realize that's part of the job.
Yeah.
That's part of the process. So I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. They're going to be around for a couple hours, at least 3 drinks later. So, but we've got, I think, Cynthia Hutchinson giving a keynote on policy on the main stage. So I'd like to end here and thank you for your attention.
Yep.